What is going on? Welcome back to Trending Stocks. Today I want to talk to you about SoundHound. So I want to go over some of the current data points, break it down what just came out from the company itself, and finally why, given all the circumstances, SoundHound might be breaking down. Before I get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So starting off Friday, it did close 3.93% in the red. 13.8 million shares were traded. 26.4 is the average. So fairly low volume. You also saw at the same time just more institutions selling. So based on the bid, the ask, and the selling price, majority of these transactions, so anything that does indicate as a bid, is a sell. So over this last little bit, you can clearly see ever since it looks like May the 31st, that's when last time a substantial amount of institutions were really buying into SoundHound. Aside from that, it's just been a lot of selling. So for a momentum play, you need a lot of capital buying, clearly not selling. So in my opinion, that is problem number one. Problem number two has been somewhat systemic. It's kind of taken a hiatus, but it's starting to resurge as of Friday after hours. So when it comes down to companies unveiling the earnings, there hasn't been anything while I'm on here, but looking at SEC filings, there was a Form 4 that was submitted after hours Friday at 4:59. And without me getting into this, any document from almost any company submitted on Friday after hours instantly is a red flag. Of course, not every case, probably 3 or 4 cases is negative. So maybe the one case is something you just need a little bit more of a deeper dive. But obviously, this company did this had an interesting timing, let's say that. So starting off, in this Form 4, it did show 𝗪𝗧𝗏𝗧, if I'm saying that right, who is the CTO, did sell 104,000 shares, as you can kind of see right here, at a price of $5 even. So in reality, it was scheduled. So just be aware that it wasn't spontaneous due to the price. So it was based on this. So it was planned ahead of time. But again, not a good sign. This transaction did occur on June the 5th, and it was transaction code S. So when I started to cover SoundHound, obviously the popularity has gone down dramatically since its spike up. But one argument I frequently had with a lot of people in my comments was that they were selling. A lot of people said, oh, it's for tax purposes. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm going to bring this up once again, just to rule it out so you guys can physically see it. These are all the transactions that have occurred by insiders for SoundHound, everyone. Unfortunately, it doesn't look good. You see a lot of selling, but just to give you an example, what is a sell associated to taxes, that is transaction code F. F is tax. S is a straight up sell. So maybe they need money. I don't know. That's beside the point and it doesn't really matter. Technically, coming from an institution or just an investor standpoint, looking at this, it is absolutely horrific. And one thing that I really said from the very beginning, why SoundHound never really got that much traction back in the beginning part of the year, because everyone was goddamn selling. So it made the company look absolutely horrific. So as you can kind of see, just a lot of selling. Transaction code S. And transaction code A means that it was awarded, so they didn't use their own money because that's transaction code P. And even still, aside from that, just a lot of just selling. Only one transaction throughout the whole time period has been for tax purposes. J is other, so I believe that was more of a gift or other, something like that. So yeah, this is definitely not a good sign. So in my opinion, starting Monday, the market is going to encumber that and probably react the same way it did back in March. So it might sell off. Even before this document did come out, the technicals were starting to look rather poor. So I think overall just SoundHound was going down, and now this might kind of escalate that. So something to kind of consider. Of course, with the data that did come out on Friday about payroll, people are going to be correlating that with interest rate cuts. So I think it is fair to assume that their next one is going to be in September, as you can kind of see from here. So September the 18th, now there is a 46.6% likelihood of a 25% basis point cut, 3.8% for a 50 basis point cut, and a 0.1% for a 75 basis point cut. So this is a little bit far-fetched, but obviously I think it is fair to assume that rates will be cut in September, which will really help a lot of momentum stocks such as SoundHound. But still, from now until September, it's light years away, at least from an investor standpoint. So just keep that in mind. Going over some data points, starting off with shorts. On Friday, shorts did return 187.63 thousand shares. 21.88% of the free float is being shorted. So it has been breaking off of the all-time high short interest, which was roughly around 22.99%. So in my opinion, come next week, you might see a resurgence and a retest of that all-time high short interest because of, like I said, the Form 4. So that's just my own opinion, of course, but utilization 96.09, and then cost to borrow average is 21.55%. So options wise, as you can kind of see right here, dollar value has gone down a lot, but 574,000 in calls, 171 in puts. Sentiment wise, very evenly divided between calls and puts. So 49% of all the options being done today were optimistic and bullish, or I guess from Friday. And of the call options that were purchased, there's a consensus for it to be above $5 by the end of, looks like next week. And then looking at puts, more consensus for it to be below 450. So in my opinion, the risk versus reward is slightly in favor of upside. But again, when it comes down to the technicals, this is where things get somewhat iffy. So right now with it at $4.65, it is trading between this S1 and the pivot. So it was really attempting to get above this pivot. I think it was beginning part of last week, but no dice. It didn't really work out. So obviously in turn, whenever something fails to get above a very strong resistance point or vice versa support, this is where you do see a pullback. So just keep in mind the technicals are also indicating that it might be going down. $4.36 will be that next strong support that you'll want to watch for SoundHound to really hold. And given the circumstances and where it might be heading, that might be touched probably mid next week. But again, dependent on a lot of different things, and ideally, best case scenario, SoundHound comes out and with some good news that would really change the dynamic of the technicals and everything else. But I think as far as right now goes, it is looking like it will be touching this S1. And yeah, especially if you look at what previously did happen, last time it was breaking down on the technicals, it was a slow downtrend up until kind of hit this pivot point of right here. So roughly this S3. So that might be coming. We'll just have to wait and see what does come. On a side note, Roaring Kitty had his live stream. I'm sure a lot of you did watch that on Friday. Even he did indicate of a top. So he was, in my opinion, a big influence on why a lot of the meme stocks did go down on Friday, which no doubtably SoundHound kind of piggybacked off of that, because SoundHound is a very unique circumstance. As I've said in the past, it's a good momentum AI and also a squeeze play. Just it needs capital, and if obviously Roaring Kitty thinks memes are kind of at a peak or just a broader market, obviously SoundHound is going to go down as a byproduct of that as well. So let me know your thoughts on that. As of right now, it is lower percentile of the Bollinger Band. On Friday, it did break below that 50-day moving average, which usually is a very strong pivot for any stock. On the actual stochastic, you do see a bearish deviation, so red line above the white as well. It is at 21, so that is considered somewhat oversold. So if there's a good piece of news, like I said, you could see a good rush of value investors getting into SoundHound, but based on the history, they're relatively quiet when it comes down to news. A number of retail investors were getting out slightly on Friday, but still nonetheless, kind of not really doing all that much. So let me know your thoughts on SoundHound. Give yourself a shout out. Have you been buying? Have you been selling? What have you been doing with SoundHound? One final thing, take advantage of this promo. Simply sign up for a new account, throw $100 at it, and they give you 5 free stocks. Each stock is valued up to $2,000. Kick-ass deal. Link in the description below and also the comments. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.